Drop the weapons, hands in the air. The shouts came so fast and fierce, even the birds stopped singing. Within seconds, the hunters in full camo froze like statues, their rifles still halfway raised. What they didn't know, what HOA Karen clearly had no idea about, was that my lake cabin wasn't empty. Far from it. 30 FBI trainees were in the woods that weekend, going through an advanced wilderness survival exercise. Now they surrounded the cabin like shadows, weapons drawn, eyes locked on the uninvited guests. Karen had sent in. One of the men in camo tried to speak. "We were just told this place was abandoned." "Then you're trespassing federal land," snapped Agent Keller, stepping forward with a badge clipped to his vest. "You have 5 seconds to start explaining who sent you, and don't lie." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. The oldest hunter turned pale. They all looked at each other, confused and clearly afraid. Karen's name hadn't come up yet, but it would soon, and when it did, there'd be no more hiding. I was standing on the cabin porch, arms folded, heart pounding, but not with fear, with quiet, boiling anger. I had warned Karen too many times. I told her to stop acting like the whole lake belonged to her and her little HOA clique. But sending in armed hunters while people were camping crossed every line. Now she was going to face something she never saw coming. But before I tell you what happened next, let me take you back to the beginning, because this story didn't start with rifles and FBI trainees. No, it started with a kind dream and a broken sign. Let me ask you something real quick. Where are you watching this from? Drop it in the comments. I want to know how far this lake cabin tale has reached, because if you've ever had someone try to bully you off your own land, you're going to want to hear this. My name is Luke Mason, I'm 52 years old, retired from active FIFI. Sure, I'll expand and rewrite your story into about 2,100 words, without commas or strike throws. Here it goes. My name is Luke Mason. I am 52 years old, and I retired from active fieldwork with the FBI. I now spend my time fixing old cabins, fishing, and teaching self-defense to local kids in my community. I bought the cabin by Golden Pine Lake 5 years ago. It is a peaceful spot. Tall trees, clean water, and good people, or at least most of them. The cabin had belonged to an older couple before me who could not manage it anymore. I gave them a fair offer, and they were glad it was going to someone who would keep it standing strong. That was all I wanted. Peace, a project to work on, and a place to breathe after 2 decades chasing cartel ghosts and white-collar monsters. But peace does not last long when you are dealing with the kind of people who think they can own the world through rules and fear. The kind of people who hide behind HOA boards and fake paperwork and threats. The kind of people who see a lake and a cabin as nothing more than a piece on their chessboard waiting to be taken. One afternoon, as the sun was beginning to dip low in the sky, my motion sensor on the east trail lit up. A group of men, 5 of them, came into view. One carried a scoped rifle, casually slung over his shoulder. They moved slow and quiet, as if they had done this many times before. But they were not careful enough. My thermal cameras picked up every footstep, every rustle of leaves, every breath. Even with their camouflage, they stood out like shadows in the fading light. I did not call the sheriff. I did not dial 911. Instead, I flipped on the secure radio and whispered 2 words: "It is time." Within minutes, the woods around the cabin came alive with soft rustling and shifting boots. 30 FBI trainees were already in position. They were circling the intruders, following their survival drills. Like clockwork, they moved like ghosts, weaving through trees, setting traps, silently waiting for the perfect moment. I stood on my porch, arms folded, heart steady, waiting, ready for what would come next. Then it happened. Drop the weapons, hands in the air. Just like I had told them, the hunters froze, their rifles halfway raised. Confused and caught off guard, the sudden voices so close and firm shocked them. One of the men finally spoke, his voice low but carrying. "We were told this cabin was a danger to the neighborhood. We were just here to scare off squatters." That was when I stepped out into the clearing, my voice calm but firm. "Then maybe you should tell me who exactly gave you that mission." The hunters glanced at each other, uncertain. One was about to speak. Her name was on the tip of his tongue, but before he could say it, there was a sudden crack in the trees. A sixth man appeared. He was younger, probably mid-20s, and he did not carry a rifle. Instead, he held a walkie-talkie. The walkie-talkie buzzed with static. Then, a sharp voice cut through the night. "Air, are they gone yet? I want that cabin cleared before sunrise, and make sure no one sees you. This is HOA business." Understood. The trainees froze. Agent Keller's eyes sharpened like a hawk, spotting prey. The man with the walkie-talkie trembled. He was not expecting a real response on that frequency. He did not even have time to turn it off before the voice came through again, louder. "Report back, Greg. Don't make me come down there myself." Keller stepped forward gently, took the walkie-talkie from the young man, pressed the side button, his voice calm but ice cold. "This is Agent Keller with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We need the name of the person who sent you. Right now." There was silence, then a rustling sound followed by the unmistakable click of someone ending the transmission. I did not need to guess who it was. Karen Whitmore. She had gone and done the unthinkable. She sent armed men to clear my cabin, thinking it would scare me into leaving, or worse, that I would not be around to stop it. But now, with 30 highly trained federal trainees surrounding her crew, she had no idea. The fire she had lit was far bigger than she could ever control. The moment the name HOA came through that radio, everything shifted. One of the hunters dropped to his knees, his weapon clattering to the ground. The others looked around, panic rising in their eyes. Agent Keller stepped forward and said, "You are trespassing on federal land. Lay down your weapons now, and no one gets hurt." The hunters dropped their rifles slowly, hands raised. They were caught in a web far beyond what they understood. I stood silent, watching the scene unfold. I thought about all the times I had warned Karen to back off, to respect the lake, the people, the homes. I thought about the peace I wanted and how it was slipping further away, but I was ready to stand my ground, to protect what was mine and what belonged to this community. Karen had underestimated me. She had underestimated the people who lived here and the strength they had. When they came together the next morning, the news spread fast. Word of the armed incursion by HOA goons reached the local papers, and the radio station's headlines shouted about the confrontation at Golden Pine Lake and the shadow of a larger investigation. Karen disappeared from sight. Soon after came a flurry of subpoenas and court dates. But the story was far from over. I remember sitting on my porch early one morning, watching the lake mist curl over the water, when Sharon, my lawyer, called with news she had uncovered a hidden USB drive hidden beneath the porch floorboards. She said the drive contains audio files edited to frame you as dangerous. It is fake, but could have been damaging without context. Karen had gone to extreme lengths. She had fabricated evidence, trying to destroy me from every angle. But with expert testimony and the truth, we would expose her lies and hold her accountable. Weeks later in court, the jury listened as the tapes were played, the falsehoods unraveled. The threats and frauds laid bare. Karen's defense crumbled, and the verdict came down guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 5 years for fraud, 2 more for obstruction, and ordered to pay restitution to every neighbor affected, me included. The weight lifted from the community. The air felt lighter. The kids swam again. Flags flew and wind chimes danced in the breeze. I carved a sign and nailed it to the porch. This cabin stood through the storm, so will I. Helen smiled when she saw it. "You ever think about running for HOA board?" she teased. I laughed. I just wanted a quiet summer. Too late for that. We both laughed, but this time it was peace. Real peace, and I had earned every second of it. But even in peace, I knew trouble rarely stays away for long. When one bully falls, another often rises. One warm August morning, I received a certified letter from a law office in Atlanta. It was not from Karen's defense team, nor the HOA. It was from a real estate investment firm claiming to have purchased Karen's interests in land around my property. They wanted to proceed with boundary negotiations, trying to salvage scraps from a failed scam. One laughed out loud. then called Sharon. She wasn't surprised corruption gets commercialized. She said they hope you'll be too tired to fight and just sell to avoid hassle. We started digging. The firm Blue Heron Holdings had a slick website, corporate photos, and buzzwords about revitalizing legacy properties, but they specialized in hostile buyouts, targeting elderly homeowners, buying easement rights, and demanding access for leverage. Sharon and I documented everything, filed cease and desist, posted public notices, warning neighbors not to sell under pressure. Turns out I was not the only one. They had targeted at least 8 cabins, seeing Karen's downfall as an opening to pick at bones she couldn't finish. We organized another neighborhood meeting under new HOA leadership. This time, it was about protection, not fighting. At the meeting, a young man named Andre stood up, mid-30s, quiet, with a wife and newborn baby. He said, "I am a real estate attorney. I moved here to get away from this. I will represent any homeowner for free if they come after you." The room burst into applause. Hope spread like fire through dry brush. We were not just neighbors anymore. We were a force. Days later, I got a visit from a Blue Heron representative, tall young man with fancy shoes, too clean for dirt roads. He pulled up in a Mercedes too close to my property line, knocked once, called out, "Mr. Reynolds, I believe we have mutual interests to discuss." I opened the door, slowly, coffee in hand. "You are standing too close to my property marker. Back up a foot and we can talk." He smiled like a TV game show host. "Fair enough." He stepped back and cleared his throat. "We just want to make a friendly offer before things get complicated. 7 figures to avoid future issues." I stared at him then. I said, "Do you know what it cost me to build this cabin?" He hesitated. "I assumed $6,000 back in 1997 with my own 2 hands. You think I am giving it up for a number on paper?" He blinked. "That is sentimental, but progress waits for no one." I stepped forward calmly. "You come near my land again, I will file trespassing charges and seek a restraining order. Tell your investors they tried to intimidate the wrong man. I have already dealt with worse." His fake smile twitched. He turned and walked away. Helen shouted from across the road, "Tell him to wear boots next time. His shoes are allergic to gravel." I laughed for the rest of the day. The weeks after were quiet. Blue Heron's lawyers went silent after Andre sent a letter. Packed with legal heat, they tried one last time, filing a motion to redraw shoreline boundaries, denied within 48 hours. Game over by autumn leaves. Pine River Shores was safe and stronger than ever. I sat on my porch. No clipboard warriors. No threats, no vultures circling, just peace. Until one morning, I found a letter, not a threat, not a summons, a handwritten note from Karen mailed from prison. "You destroyed everything. I hope it was worth it." No apology, no regret, just bitterness. Just bitterness. The diner went quiet. The only sound was the hiss of the coffee pot. "You call the sheriff." "Didn't have to. FBI was already there." Her eyes nearly popped out of her head. "You serious? 30 trainees, all armed, all trained, all watching." Someone behind me let out a low whistle. I didn't go into more detail. Not yet. I still needed to think, needed to plan, because if I knew Karen, and I did, she was already spinning a new story, something dramatic, something that painted her as the victim, and I wasn't wrong. By the time I got back to the cabin, I had 2 messages pinned to my gate, signed CHO President Glenda Whitmore. The second was handwritten in messy, rushed pen. "You shouldn't have brought the FBI here." I stood there holding both papers, shaking my head. She had guts. I'd give her that twisted, bitter guts. I walked straight to my storage shed, unlocked the metal case hidden behind a tool rack, and pulled out my old field file binder. I hadn't touched it in years, but inside was a stack of documents I kept for one reason only: leverage. I pulled out the one labeled Lakeside Harmony Land. Deed dispute, 1989. Back when the lake was first divided up, Karen's neighborhood tried to claim the land around the cabin, but the original deed showed clearly my lot was separate and legal. The HOA had never had jurisdiction here. I made a copy, put it in an envelope, and I mailed it to every member of her HOA board, with one sentence attached: "You've been lied to. Ask Karen for the original deed." But that wasn't the end, not even close. Because that evening, just after sundown, as I was sitting on my porch with a mug of hot cocoa and a clear conscience, my camera sensors lit up again. 6 new figures, no rifles, just cell phones. They were taking pictures of my property, whispering and pointing. And one of them was Karen. She was standing there in her peach-colored suit, tapping her phone like she was reporting me to someone again. But this time, she wasn't alone. This time she brought backup, and they were standing near my shed. That's when I heard a crash glass followed by a scream, and that's where we'll stop for now. Because when I rushed to the back of the cabin to find out what happened, what I saw wasn't Karen anymore. It was someone else, someone I never expected to see again. The scream was sharp, a woman's voice, high-pitched and panicked, not Karen. When I reached the side of the shed, the broken window glinting in the fading sunlight, I spotted her crouched behind a pile of stacked firewood, shaking hands, cut and bleeding. It was Rachel Davis. Rachel used to work in the town clerk's office, sweet woman in her early 40s with short curly brown hair and kind green eyes. She was the last person I'd ever expect to see near Karen's camp of chaos, especially at my cabin, especially now. "Rachel," I said, confused, "what the hell are you doing here?" She looked up at me, tears in her eyes, fear all over her face. "I thought we were just taking pictures for the HOA meeting." I helped her to her feet and let her inside. She had a nasty cut on her palm. I grabbed a first aid kit from the hallway cabinet, the one I always kept stocked because of the survival camps. "Who's we?" I asked, gently cleaning her hand. Karen said she had permission to inspect your property. She told the board you were building illegal structures and hiding military equipment. She made it sound dangerous. I raised an eyebrow. Military equipment? She told us you were hosting rogue paramilitary groups, that we needed proof so she could report it to the county. She wasn't part of Karen's scheme. She was a pawn like the hunters, someone Karen used for her twisted HOA crusade. She didn't tell us about the FBI trainees. She said the cabins were abandoned again. I shouldn't have come. I nodded slowly. You didn't come to break anything. Numbered, I swear I tripped over something in the dark and fell against the window. Just then, Agent Keller entered through the front door. His expression was tight. "Luke, we've got company. 3 vehicles just pulled into the end of your trail." I stood and walked to the front porch with him. The sun was gone now. The trees looked like tall shadows. Headlights flickered through the leaves. SUVs. One of the vehicles stopped near my front gate. Out stepped Sheriff Dean Callahan, and beside him Karen Whitmore, dressed like she was heading to a charity ball. Peach blazer, beige heels, oversized sunglasses, even though it was dusk. The sheriff raised a hand. "Evening, Luke." "Evening, Dean," I said flatly, "coming for a cup of cocoa." He gave a weak chuckle, but his eyes were already scanning the broken window. Behind me and Rachel sitting inside, hand bandaged and wide-eyed. Karen walked forward, her voice syrupy and loud. "I'm here to officially report Mr. Mason for harboring illegal federal agents and threatening the security of our neighborhood." Agent Keller stepped beside me. "Ma'am," he said in his calm, deadly FBI voice, "those agents are part of a federal survival training program, fully documented, fully approved, and this property is private land." Karen's smile didn't break. "That's not what my files say." I held up my phone. "Funny, because this deed here says otherwise." I turned the screen toward the sheriff. Dean walked up, squinted at the photo of the 1989 legal land deed, and sighed. "I've seen this before. That property line hasn't changed since the 80s. Karen's face twitched. "That's outdated. We were just trying to ensure safety. There were reports of armed men running drills. My neighbors were scared." "You mean the same men your walkie-talkie told to clear the cabin before sunrise?" I asked quietly. She froze. I took a step forward. "Your voice was recorded, and we have the radio transmission." The sheriff's hand went to his belt. Karen blinked fast. "No, there isn't. You lied to all of us. You said we were helping the community. You didn't say anything about hunters with guns or FBI agents. The look Karen gave Rachel could have melted iron, but it was too late. Sheriff Dean looked exhausted. I think it's time we take a drive down to the station, Karen. We've got some explaining to do. Karen didn't resist, not because she was innocent, but because she still thought she'd talk her way out of it. As they walked back to the car, I stood there on the porch with Keller, watching her vanish into the trees. I thought maybe, just maybe, it was finally over. But I was wrong, because the next morning, before the sun even fully rose, I got a phone call. It was from Diego, the kid from my self-defense class. His voice was shaking. Mr. Mason, I think someone's following me. I saw a man outside my house this morning, same face from the woods. He didn't see me, but I think he was looking for you. My stomach turned because I'd told Diego everything. I thought it was over, but Karen wasn't acting alone. She worked with, they were circling back. Not with rifles this time, but with something colder, something hidden, something personal. I didn't waste a second. The moment Diego hung up, I grabbed my keys, strapped my old sidearm to my hip, not to use, just to show, and drove straight into town. Diego lived with his grandmother in a quiet cul-de-sac near the old fire tower. Good people they kept to themselves. The kind of folks Karen's HOA ignored because they didn't live behind fancy gates. He looked scared, not the pretend kind, the real kind, the kind that comes from knowing something bad is watching you, and not knowing why. I saw him again just 5 minutes ago, he whispered. He was wearing a hoodie, but I recognized his face. He was one of the guys you and the FBI stopped. Did he say anything? No, he was just standing near the fence across the street, pretending to look at his phone. Then he left. I stepped onto the porch and scanned the neighborhood. Nothing stood out, but that didn't mean much. Whoever this was, they weren't done yet. Diego, I said gently, I want you to stay with your grandmother today. Lock the doors, and if you see anyone again, call me or Agent Keller. The boy nodded. I could tell he wanted to ask more, but I couldn't tell him everything, not yet. Back at the cabin, I found Keller reviewing overnight footage. He didn't look surprised when I told him about the man near Diego's place. We suspected this, he muttered. Karen's not smart enough to plan all this alone. There's someone behind her, maybe funding her, maybe using her to test how far they can go before someone pushes back. That chilled me. Karen had always been a control freak, but if someone with darker motives was backing her, we weren't dealing with HOA drama anymore. We were dealing with something organized. Do we have names? I asked. He nodded slowly. We're working on it. Get this. One of the hunters, the youngest one, his bank account shows a deposit from a shell corporation. Rachel connected the mobile unit to the projector. Monroe's team activated the encrypted live stream, and then I stepped up to the camera. The night was still, my voice shook slightly at first. My name is Luke Mason. I am a retired federal agent. I live here on Golden Pine Lake, and I am here to tell you we are under attack. I told the world everything. The fake HOA expansion, the shell company, the attempted arson, the armed break-ins, the land grab. I showed them Karen's walkie-talkie audio, the rare mineral documents, the live drone footage of the boat still drifting on the lake, and I ended with this: we are not going quietly. We are not for sale, and we will not be erased. The stream reached over 200,000 viewers in real time, and the hashtag started trending within the hour. Save Golden Pine HO exposed Karen cover-up reporters. Began calling local law enforcement lawmakers, started asking questions. Federal investigations reopened, and the man in the boat, he suddenly jumped overboard and vanished beneath the dark water. By dawn, we had a warrant for Harmony's entire operation, and that same day, Agent Monroe received word from D.C. Karen had been found. She was hiding in a luxury condo in the city, guarded by private security preparing to leave the country. They arrested her at the airport. No sunglasses, no pastel suit, just cuffs and silence. She did not say a word. She did not have to. The truth was louder over the next week. Harmony Front Holdings collapsed, their assets frozen. Their development permits revoked. The people behind the scenes, names we had never even heard, began flipping on each other to cut deals. Golden Pine was saved. Rachel's cabin was rebuilt, with help from every neighbor, every friend, and a few kind strangers who donated after seeing the live stream. Diego, he got a scholarship offer from a youth academy in DC. Turns out someone important saw him helping scan documents and wanted to reward his bravery. As for me, I am still here, still on my porch. Coffee in hand, the forest is quiet again, not because the danger is gone, but because we faced it together. And in that stillness, I learned something. Sometimes the best way to protect what is yours is not with fences or firepower. It is with truth and the courage to stand when everyone else tells you to sit down. So if you have your own HOA Karen trying to push you off your land, do not back down, because the second you do, they win. But if you stand tall, you just might find you are not standing alone.